In this video, we're going to learn about the float property and how it works. So to do this, I'm going to use this image. And notice that this image is inside a paragraph. I've got the paragraphs bordered so we can see where they are. And there's words and an image in the paragraph. So in the HTML, on the image itself, I've set the class attribute to steps. So in the style file, in mystyle.css, I can capture that image by doing image.steps, which means an image that has the class property set to steps. And I'm going to set the float property. Now the float expects a keyword, and it can be left or right. So I'm going to have it float left. So if I save that and refresh, notice what happens. The image is taken out of the normal flow. So notice it comes right out of the paragraph and is put up against the left boundary. And, and then everything, so it's floating on the left and other things are being pushed around it. So notice that the words that were by it before are pushed over to the side, but the paragraph itself goes all the way behind it, takes up all the space behind it. Then there's a header that it goes up beside it, a list that goes up beside it, another heading, and then another paragraph that floats up beside it. And so you see it being taken out of context and everything floating up beside it. Now, this can do some interesting things. It'll actually have you do things that maybe you're not expecting. Watch what happens if I just do if I float all the images and I refresh. Then every image is taken out of context and everything below it flows up beside it. Here's another image. It's taken out of context, put on the left. Everything below it flows up. This one does the same thing. Everything flows up. Now this image is left. It can't make it all the way to the left because it bumps up against that previous image. So as the furthest left it can go is up against that image. So it is in fact floating left, but it's bumping up against that other image, and then things below it are floating up. And so notice here that the table floated up beside this image. So it does some interesting things. You'll want to try it and make sure it does what you want. I'm going to put this back to image.steps and float that. One more thing is that you can set control over. So now you see how this image float up beside it, but nothing float up beside that image, because this image is not actually floating. It's only the one that's floating now. A couple of things. Notice how these are up so tight against it. So I could set a margin on this image to make sure everything stays away from it. So I could put, and it's really on the right, I want margin right. And I want it to be 24 pixels. I just want to keep everything away from it and get some space there. And so that gave me 24 pixels margin there that makes everything gap away from that image. How about, let's say that I want this list to go beside it, right? I want it to flow up beside it, but I don't want the testing the hypothesis. I want it to be below. So I can control it by capturing this heading. So I need to go in here and I need to find this heading, testing the hypothesis, and I need just this heading. So I'm going to set a class to that, and I'm going to call this testing. And then I can go into my style and I can say it's a heading 2 with a class set to testing, and I want it not to float. So I can set the property, it's called the clear property. I'm going to say clear everything. Your two options are clear left, clear right, or clear both. That's 3 options. I want to clear it on the left. So it says I want to make sure I'm clear of anything that's floating on the left. So when I refresh that, notice that now it will be clear. Make sure that it goes below any floating thing on the left. So that's a way that I can control with this heading whether I let myself float or not. And so I have that kind of control with that using the clear property.